I was kind of hoping that industry and commerce would be more a part of this. They're very good at making economic decisions, and this is an economic decision.
We are very good at.
We all are very good, yeah. Okay, so I became a enrolled about. I just felt like training. It wasn't, it wasn't like a big deal. It's like I just signed up.
Thanks. And last but not least, we have land, agriculture, and forestry, James.
Hi, I am James from St. Paul, Minnesota. We have land, agriculture, and forestry. So as everyone came here and traveled and got to see the land as they got here, enjoyed lunch and get to see as the agricultural piece of it, and as we look outside and see the forestry of it, that's why our group is the most important.
Great. So thanks to all our ambassadors. As Bill mentioned, you see two types of sheet on your table. One is about like the animals control panel, right? And another one is just like some of the policies that probably your team need to go through and see that what kind of actions you probably want to take in regards to those policies. Okay. So make sure, because I believe that we have enough of those sheets on each table, but if you need extra copy, let us know about that. So this is how the whole thing is works, and how are we going to do that? So what we try to do is that we have to act like a global leader over here, right? From different sectors. As I mentioned about agriculture, industry, governments, right? And each of us needs to think about like, some of the policy that we may want to focus, and basically some of the things that we want to see the change. But all of us has one main goal, and I assume that everybody know what is that goal. This is achieving to less than 0.C degrees Celsius. Okay, so this is what we are trying to work. The one way that we actually can see if our policy or any of the scenarios that we're thinking about can work or not is using the earnings. So as an individual sector, we can go through that, take a decision among our team members and see if this policy would be enough to see the changes or not. The one thing is that today probably as you look at your table, you do not have access to your computer or your laptop. So it might be a little bit, it's not cheap. So let's not use our cell phone. So we want to not be biased, okay? So we just want to think about like some of the criteria that we have in our mind and see if it really works or not. I believe that this is the best approach to not having a biased way of thinking about if this policy will work or not. So we said that each of the tables going to have like this sheet as you see, which is the enrolled panels, and you see some of the actually modules that you can work with, like energy supply. So it depends on what you're working on. You can actually think about some of the things based on the policy that you have, some of the things that you can work through on this module and see if you can see any changes on our global target or not. So being said that, for example, if you are in the conventional, but still when you read your policy, you feel like this other part or this other module is also related to the conventional, we can work around it. So here you see we don't see any numbers, but later on you're going to see that on the arrows you see the numbers like 70%, 80%, the numbers that you can actually make the changes. But for the sake of time, what we're going to do is that we consider here as a moderate, like the middle ground moderate scenario, the highest part and the lowest part. Okay, so if you want to consider your scenario, you're gonna say, a pole should go to the heights or go to the middle, okay? So in that case, it would be easier to actually do this game more than once. So we also give the credit to the Climate Impact Lead and MIT and CCI because this software and this platform is actually developed by them and it's free, so everybody can use that. So this is another great thing about the campaigns. So as you see, this is how the process goes. Round one is the team negotiations. Go through those policies that you have over there. We negotiate with each other. And then you believe that what would be your priority on that list because you see that you have different items. So what happens is that each team will have one action per round. Okay? So you imagine that I'm going to do this and that, but not more than that. And plus, one person from each table needs to be representative of the whole group because probably each table actually, because later on what we're going to do is that since now you're going to see that what would be the impact of the scenarios that you implemented on this platform, then as a team of like the people who are working on the same category, because as you may notice, we have two tables for each category. Then you can team up again and see what we can do, okay? And at the end, what will happen is that there is also another sheet, if you look at that in the middle of each table, that it says that the actions that probably you want to take. So you can write it down and you can read it and just say, this is the team that our team works with. Very briefly, the conventional energy, if you are over there, means that technically you're talking about the coal, oil, gas, nuclear, and electric utilities. So make sure that the conventional energy, for conventional energy, these are like the modules that you want to work with, okay? And then you're talking about the green, you're talking about the wind, solar, other renewable energy, energy storage, electric vehicles, energy efficiency, green building, technological carbon removal, and of course, new energy for the future. For the industrial commerce, as you look at that, you see that we have manufacturing, industrial machinery, consumer products, and high tech. For land, agriculture, and forestry, we have food, we have agriculture, we have logging company, we have land conservation group. So make sure that when you're applying your scenario, you consider those modules that are actually related to all these categories that you see already. The fourth government, which is a developed country, rapidly developing country, and a small one. So one of the important things is that as the world government, you're not presenting just one of these countries. You're actually presenting all of them. So make sure that the scenario that you're applying could be applicable to all of these type of countries. So for the first round, we're going to give you 10 minutes to think about your scenario. And then we're going to spend probably 2 to 3 minutes for each table to go through their scenario and then apply that on the evidence. Is that clear? Okay, accept that. Each table, sorry. So there would be 2. Okay, over here we have a one representative for on that one they have what was that one? So we come up with one.
It's already round 2, supposed to be round 1, but you come up with what you would
equals up. Do you think $10 a ton would be a good place to start? So we have several suggestions on how to make the world more sustainable. The first is ethanol. We love ethanol, and we have two reasons about ethanol. Not only is it good for agriculture, able to capture the CO2, sequester it, and use it to push more oil out of the ground. In fact, we will be producing carbon neutral oil. Sequestering the CO2 from ethanol. Ethanol is one of the things.
I do, bioenergy. You would like coal.
Yeah, well, this is like carbon capture. We're looking for technology to help us solve the global problem. Incidentally, we do think that coal should be cut back a little bit. Probably the U.S. is ahead of this, but other countries really can't do it without crushing low-income people. We also was very enthusiastic about geothermal. We're not sure where that goes. Our hope is that we own it. Jump the microphone. We love geothermal, particularly if we own it. Everyone here knows we have the technology, we have the scope, we can scale it internationally, but we need to make sure the economics work and don't undermine the vital petroleum and gas and fossil fuel industry. So that's our position, and we just love working with our fellow concerned citizens.
I think we did. I'm told.
You don't have ethanol in there? And the reduction in coal.
We'll go whole hog on it.
Yeah, we love ethanol.
Whole hog, what a joke.
Did I miss anything particular? We're loaded with ideas over here of how to perpetuate our interests. Yeah, good. And I do want to say one other minor thing about the inroads model. It's a global model.
Yes.
And the issue we're concerned about are the unintended consequences of a fee or tax on carbon. The unintended consequences we suspect could punish low-income people worldwide, and it would be a serious problem. So we want to remind everyone to be very mindful of those unintended consequences. So ethanol is a fantastic solution.
Just one quick note, make sure that you have 1 minute. Okay? You're fine. So the second conventional, I guess that we have like another, yes, so.
We're lucky to have 3 minutes. You don't have to talk there.
As my student colleague has already said, we are deeply concerned with any unintended consequences that could happen. For instance, we may start losing, that is to say, countries whose economics deeply depend on oil may start losing money and greatly suffer. We certainly cannot let that happen to our global economy. In addition to that, it should be noted that conventional energies are all for research into the carbon and ways to capture carbon that's being emitted. We're not against that at all. The government should totally research that. Now, that the economy does not suffer from any risks taken. You don't want all of these people risk taken by doing extreme changes.
What was their recommendation?
I don't know.
Where did the carbon removal?
That was a big thing. That was their big thing. 0.1 degrees.
Yeah. Okay, good. Wow. I'm not.
So the next group that we want to go through is the clean tech, since now we have like the conventional. So we want to have the clean technology industry. One representative from clean tech.
On the right.
Our menu comes from this list of 6 possibilities, and we have selected number 1 as our number 1. So make fossil fuels pay their true costs. And then as clean tech, we are very much in favor of subsidizing renewables, not because it's not out of selfishness, but because we want to see the world have more renewables. And then on top of that, we want to see more efficiency in electric vehicles and energy efficiency in electric vehicles. So the transportation sector number. So we're looking at numbers.
You're gonna have one.
Yeah, so we're looking at number 1 among the solutions. We're looking at number 1 and number 2 and number 4.
Jill doesn't know what those are.
Okay, oh, you have this.
You want a big carbon price, right?
That's number 1. Number 1 would be the carbon price. Number 2 is subsidized renewable energy, solar, wind, geothermal. And number 3.
Again.
Well, okay, so I thought that there were several people that suggested a couple of proposals.
One at a time.
Okay, so pay attention to what happening for us. So if we're forced to choose, I've given them in order, so I have to choose one, like a carbon price. So our first choice is the carbon
Oh, okay.
And the representative from the second table from the clean tech.
He took all of our.
No, we have one more.
Because we all know that the best place to put carbon is in the ground. We're going to do carbon removal for high-tech ways of sucking it out of the atmosphere and sticking it into the ground, just like the Summit pipeline. And we want to put the ethanol in the ground too.
Okay, that means it go up.
Okay, so now we go to the industry and commerce. So the representative from
It went up.
So here, conditional commerce, and I mean, concern is to stay in business and to keep making money. We have shown that the buildings and industry, energy efficiency and electrification. Buildings and industry, energy efficiency and electrification, there are 2 tables. And we chose that under the building and industry.
We want to move the, increase electrification, but not too much, We don't like big change, we want manageable change. For energy and electrification.
So the representative from land, agriculture, and forestry.
I guess in the spirit of choosing one thing, we actually chose 2 things that are related to each other. We would like to see less deforestation and more afforestation. These are obviously, they're sort of different sides of the same coin. We don't think we would recommend setting either of these to the absolute maximum and minimum, because after all, there are a lot of people who depend on one thing or another. We talked about methane and so on, but we felt that in our particular context of land, agriculture, and forestry, the lowest hanging fruit has to do with forestation.
The representative from the second table on the land, agriculture, and forestry. We also talked about deforestation and reforestation. We felt like it was a bit complex for our industry because there's some who profit and some who wouldn't for the industry. So then we talked a little bit, well, if you consider the emissions of methane and nitrous oxide and other greenhouse gases, we're reluctant to support policies that would change that because they might lead to, even if they would lead to large reductions in these emissions because it would affect our working practices. So we did also talk a little bit about supporting subsidies for renewable energy. A lot of farmers and ranchers are benefiting from solar fields for wind turbines, for land that's no longer usable, they can put solar fields in. But that also just depends on where you're located. So ultimately what we came up with was supporting technological, carbon removal. That's what we came up with. Because we actually feel like all of these suggestions would not benefit our industry. Carbon removal. The last group is the world government. So we are very hopeful of that. So one representative from we are the world. We are the world. Representing both developed countries and underdeveloped countries, the developing countries, and island nations. We took a very global approach, and we believe that the first priority action should be subsidizing renewable energy. Because after all, the developed countries made a promise at Paris that they were going to do this. Let's follow up with the promises that have been made. And this will enable the developing economies to be ready for a carbon price at some point in the future because they will have some renewable energy already developed. We also believe that this development, this new energy development, the subsidizing developing countries, should be overseen by some kind of international body. We think maybe the World Bank would be a good body to oversee this. Something along the lines of UN peacekeeping forces that are monitored and overseen by international bodies. So that's our proposal. Thank you. So the second representative from what government? That's
For our second proposal, we want to focus on reducing emissions from methane, nitrous oxide, and other greenhouse gases besides CO2, given that they are many times more potent than CO2. And there's a lot of easy things that we can do, like capturing methane that's already leaking or off-gassing from landfills. CFCs that are used for refrigerants, we can provide incentives that encourage people to recycle them and to make sure that we're doing proper maintenance on systems so that those CFCs are doing. So we would like to focus primarily on the methane and other gases.
So now for the second round, what we want to do is that since for each category we have two tables, right? We want that two tables work together. Now you heard each other, the scenario that you wanted to apply, and you saw the impact of that on the group, right? So we want to work as a team. And at the end, instead of applying those alone, what we're going to do is that apply all of these scenarios together, but collectively, rather than just counting on world government or industry and commerce, and see if we can take action collectively together. Can we achieve like 2.5 or not? Okay, so again, 10 minutes, and then we're gonna get the important thing that I want to mention is that the main reason that they're saying that you guys need to apply one scenario is that We know that usually we need a lot of infrastructure policy per region for doing all of those actions, right? So for that specific reason, you're thinking about, let's have like a list and think about which one is important or is on the top of the list. And in that sense, we can, in each individual sector, we can take some action and see what's going to happen. So starting from conventional, the representative from conventional economy, that's what we're going to do.
You're still writing a long list. No. Yes, you're looking so hard.
We as conventional energy resources are truly for making sure that our economy stays stable. We want to protect those who are vulnerable to vast changes that are being proposed right now. We do recognize that we must make strides into renewable energy sources that are truly sustainable, such as geothermal and nuclear energy sources. Sources such as these are already able to fit into our pre-established system and will not harm us. We do not want to engage in risky and experimental energy sources that could harm our economy and put those truly at risk, a true financial risk to be harmed. We want to make sure that our system will stay stable and sustainable, which is why while we are for programs such as carbon capture, nuclear energy, and geothermal energy, we want to avoid all new technology that we truly don't know how it will work.
That's what.
Okay, so now we since that the conventional didn't make any changes.
They like the current system.
We in the clean tech industry were unhappy that we did not get highlighted what happened when we made our proposal. We want everyone to watch closely what happens. And we have not changed our thinking. We still feel that if the goal is to move that end point, we should put a price on carbon. Watch what happens.
So how about the industry and commerce? Well, we want to share the wealth. We want to help out as much as we can. We're going to do our part. So we have decided that we would really like to subsidize clean energy, all those renewables. And you know what? It'll trickle down to the lowest. And I think some voters will like that, and I think some people in Congress will like that, and I think it myself. Great. So now you're looking for a representative from land, agriculture, and forestry.
Point one turn. What is called a carbon price wasn't there.
Yeah. Okay, we farmers and forestry companies have decided that the way to go is with considering emissions of methane, nitrous oxide, and other greenhouse gases. We know we can feed our cows kelp, and we can capture methane with improved technology. We know that we have a new precision agriculture bill that is going to help us supply only the amount of nitrogen on our fields that we absolutely need. And, we can look at things like cover crops. If we could get some subsidies that would keep the carbon in the ground after we harvested our corn. Thank you very
Okay, so now we have the workshop on the record.
Thank you. We are really pleased that we have allies in this, on this globe, on this planet. And that would be the folks that did the price on carbon, which we think is a powerful tool because it is economy-wide. Our solutions, yes, they can be maybe siloed into certain areas, and you put a lot of silos together and you end up with a big farm. But we actually ultimately need something that is economy-wide, global, and that will reach into every aspect of this transition that we have to make. So we'd like to join forces with those folks that have already proposed the price on carbon, and we'd like to see it go to the next. So would you please move that?
Great, so no, but you see that
I have to add, we would like to see a carbon border adjustment mechanism because we know that this could be very highly unfair. So it's not in there, but it's a policy piece that we should be in. Thank you.
Yes.
So for the third round of this game, what we're gonna do is that we start the scenario from here. Imagine this is the scenario that we have. So now you saw what actions the other sectors make, right? So now you may want to undo some of those things. You're not happy about like carbon pricing probably, or you want to make some changes. So now please make sure that whatever policy you want to see over here is basically based on now what you see on the screen, okay? Again, as a team, take a decision and see how you can make the changes. And then we're gonna come back and apply them, and then at the end, we're gonna come to the Q&A. Okay. And we are going to start with conventional. We have any the conventional energy.
Brace yourself, everyone. You're gonna have a great presentation.
Open to endure.
Okay, so while other industries have been looking out for themselves and trying to increase their profits, they have ignored the fact that full stopping the fossil fuel industry is going to be disastrous for many, many communities, especially across America, that are dependent on natural gas and coal for their energy and would not be able to make an immediate switch to any other fuel source, as we do not have a national grid. Thank God we do not have a national grid, because if we did, we would be going against the very core of America that is built on individualism and independence. We're succeeding to this federal grid that would make us all dependent on each other. I need to be aware of how our actions are affecting others in our country instead of being independent, self-sustaining communities. So we oppose the high carbon tax. We would allow for it to be existing somewhat, but somewhat, a little bit less. Thank you. Yeah, we can tax a little bit because we do see this trend of needing to decrease. We need to decrease temperatures a little bit, so we see the solution to that as this sequestering carbon, which can be done either through technology or through cover crops, both of which we have in our options that are currently being Thank you. So now moving to the clean tech energy. Do we have a representative?
We feel that the coal and natural gas industry, which presents itself as not being selfish, it does not propose getting rid of its own subsidies, is being disingenuous. And we therefore ask that you put back all of the funds as it was before. And furthermore, we would like to see more investment in R&D. We believe that investment in R&D will help us move that needle. And we're doing a lot of that too, so we should be subsidized in our investment. I mean, we're doing a lot of that R&D, and we feel that there should be incentives for even more. That's our opinion. Thank you.
So now we're moving to the industry and commerce.
Real talk back here. We were excited when secretly excited when they moved the carbon tax, because we know that's bad for industry, but we didn't want to come out and say that. So we were just going to let that slide. But then these guys moved the lever back. I think we have to move it back to the medium, because otherwise it's just recession, and that doesn't help anybody. So yeah, we gotta go down to the the other proposal we had was to increase energy efficiency, because it doesn't like to be efficient. Doesn't say transport buildings. That's what we care about. There you go. Yeah. Thank you.
Can we do two after?
Oh, we did.
Thank you.
Another negotiation.
Yeah, we're both.
So we are going to the land, agriculture, and forestry. So there's a representative from that group.
We have three, but I can do that. The bottom line is, this is a problem that humans caused, right? So, I guess what we would like to do, and we've got some short-term things like with the methane, that's a short-term intervention. So we would like to reduce population.
Yeah.
To be fair, that's a little more. Not increasing.
Yeah. All right. We propose as the world governments to put the carbon price back. All the way, thank you. And in addition, we also propose a policy to decrease methane as well. Now that we've done that, I just want to wrap it up like with a couple of comments and know your opinion about what was like a surprising point for you, what actually made you wondered about the entire thing. But before we go there, I just wanted to show you this map on the right, which is the flood risk map. And looking at that, if you recall, we started with 3.5. And the blue is actually shows all the land at risk. So even if we decrease and become like have like 1.7, you can see that how much
the land we can save by actions. So technically means that even we do a lot, we're still not there. And with actions and the speed of the actions that you're taking these days, technically means that we are behind where we need to be at. Yeah, and if you can, yes. So we see that in different parts which are impacted by the flood, what would be the results of the actions that we make? Another important thing is that if you recall from the first scenario that we ran, so you remember that each of you did your own scenario, then we put it back to what it was default, and we didn't see that much changes on the temperature, right? But when we collectively, I know that we argued with each other, we weren't happy about the decision of one another, but at the end, when we collectively tried to do the things, we saw that we actually could have impacted more compared when individual, as individual sector, we try to do something. So it's very important to think about, like, rather than taking one action, probably each person in each sector that they are at, they need to take some steps. And it's wrong that we think that I need to be in energy sector that I can take any actions. This, I guess, exercise shows us it doesn't matter which sector we belong to. Still, our actions are valid and we need to take action. Another important thing is that some people look at the whole scenario and whole platform as a kind of a game itself. That they believe that, okay, we're working with this slide bar, moving it from here and there, and all of a sudden I see changes and I don't understand what's going on. One of the important things is that when MIT started working on this, they put all the equations and everything behind the modules that you can see over here. So it's causal loop diagram. And one of the advantage of this platform is that everything is online. You can see the En-ROAD manual. You can have access to that. You can actually rebuild the causal loop diagram if you have access to some of the software that they made available. So it's really interesting that all these things that you can see, all the graphs, all the things that you can see over here, there actually are the results of the mathematical equation. And those equations are not built. It's just like how it works. So they have like the data from all the valid data sources like IPCC, EPA, IPA, and they collected all those data. And whatever data that they use, they actually put that this data is coming from here, that data is coming from there. So what you see over here as a result is just like whatever that we have done so far. So this is the trend that we have done so far. Based on that, this is how probably gonna work. So based on those relationships and what probably the actions we may take, then they build a scenario that you can work around and see what would be the future of this planet. That was another thing that I found interesting because I know that sometimes people believe that these are just graphs. We don't understand where those graphs come from. But the fact is that there are some mathematical equations behind them. And I know that, like, around the US, at least I know at UND, students are working around these mathematical equations. They try to elaborate it, they try to add their own scenario and rebuild it. This platform is built based on global scenario. I know that some people are trying to localize it and use it at the state level, nation level, because they believe the majority of like those causal loop diagrams are valid around the states as well, around the countries. It's just like that you need to change your input as the data that you're using for that specific location. So being said that, I was wondering from each table or anybody on this room that were there any point that you feel surprised about what you saw over here or what actually made you surprised about the whole end session? Any volunteer?
I was wondering if would it be okay to just pull out the carbon price and see how much effect it had? The other thing contributes to that.
I was surprised to see the population control of the opposite, but we have lost over that in play.
You to go with that, and I just want to see that for it. But what are the actual, policy behind that population? Is the neighbor those three dots there, keep it planned out? Yeah.
It's not so much a policy choice behind it, it's more of a what if. What if population is growing like this? What if we have economic growth like this? So it's not that we're choosing that, it's, well, what if that is also with it? So it's more of a allow you to see the ranges. As opposed to China's one child. Yes.
I mean, you know what happens with nuclear? We talked a little bit about that. What number did we start at?
So 3.3. 3.3 is the baseline.
Oh.
So nuclear, well, yeah, the carbon. Then take carbon out.
Without the carbon.
Right. Nuclear by itself gives you 0.1.
And the thing is that if you look at the slide bar itself, when you go to the very end, it tells you that it's highly centralized or it's highly taxed. So taking thing is that it's not realistic. So when you're in the moderate range, technically means that still it's more than what it's on the default setting of the platform, but it gives you the opportunity to understand that this is more realistic, it's feasible.
I just want to point out one thing that you just saw me do there is I copied the URL so that I could reset it and then go back to the scenario that I had. So everything in this scenario is encoded in the URL. So you can share that very easily with somebody else. Say, hey, take a look at this. I just sent you one.
You had the flood risk map up there, which I didn't know even existed. Are there other risk maps?
Yes.
Yes,
So
there's a lot.
there is a graph, and over there is an impact. So any of those things you can see, like the ice free Arctic summer population exposed to the sea level. So you can see any of those impacts.
Yeah.
That's the map we should look at.
None of our senators here like this.
Oh,
Yeah, I want to ask you that, is there room for this organization to include artificially produced meats? Because we're seeing more and more that they come with technical solutions to grow meats, thereby offsetting the need for livestock and offsetting the need for deforestation. Right. Certain countries, right? And I didn't find it there, but maybe it's too premature at this point in time. But
That counts as methane and other, or possibly like zero carbon.
it would. Reducing livestock.
yeah, but I don't think they include that over here.
Anyway, maybe you can send that idea.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter. I mean, that it shouldn't be me or any other ambassadors. If you feel something is wrong with that model, or if you feel like that something needed to be added or considered, you can just send them an email. Yes.
So here's our food from animals, which is called meat. So 30% of diet by 2100. So we could, if we drop this from 30% to 10%, we get a 0.1 degree change by itself. I mean, that's just by itself. We can increase to 40%. So the tool allows us a 10 to 40% range.
Yeah, but does that include the reduction in deforestation?
That's, yes. That's why it's like this, well,
Oh, it is there.
yeah, that's why it's.
Deforestation.
Oh, I couldn't see it.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're
I'm blind. Anyway. Okay.
Can you, so if you clear everything out again and just put renewables as high as they can go, what does it do? So goes on things too. And that's, to me, that, I am a little bit leery about putting this in the hands of certain politicians that might say, well, look at where you want to switch to all these renewables and it only reduces at 0.2.
Yes, but you can talk to that in regards to, say, the Republicans, all of the above energy strategy, saying we need more than one solution. Right? There is no silver bullet, but
you can also.
we have silver buckshot. You know, that's
And you can also
that's
mention the
deal.
co-benefits of clean air. And a lot of that, you know, it's not necessarily in the model, rather. Yeah,
But what subsidizing renewables doesn't do is keep the fossil fuels in the ground. It just makes all energy less expensive. And so it doesn't make us use more, well, it makes us use more renewables, but it just brings the price down on everything.
Doesn't it make us less dependent on fossil fuels?
It does help some, but it doesn't have the effect that the carbon tax does, because the carbon tax does make the fossil fuels stand up. For this issue, the analogy I heard is that you're not going to lose weight by just adding salads to your pasta.
Another thing is that usually when they want to show that to the policymakers, with the model, they also bring the flower chart, which is also part of like the enroll, and it discusses about the equity, the health, the environment, and everything which is outside of like those mathematical equations. So to make sure that whatever that you're taking is a decision maker, does that also benefit all these sectors, or is it just about like the temperature? The temperature would be one of like the parameters in that flow chart.
Now, last night, Jessica had that, she was sort of arguing that the closer the impact is to the decision, or, you know, to the community, that just helps us have a more realistic perspective. Is there a graphic in En-ROADS that says, this is the, I don't know, disturbance or extraction that's needed for this practice? Like, is that does that show up in a graphic either? That if I increase, well, what I've been hearing about lately, right, is increasing renewables means we're going to do more mining for a lot of minerals. I'm just curious if there's a real.
That's not inherent. But if you look at the gross amount of material moved for our, you know, current world and our future world,
yeah,
you have to include oil and coal in the current state, and that is massively comparison.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Lee?
Yeah, this is a global model, but the carbon fee we talk about as if it's an American-only fee. What does it have to be in the U.S.? I mean, does this assume that fee is global?
Yes.
Whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think China, you know, India, everywhere would have the same fee that we use on the slider fee.
They call it an average.
Okay.
An average fee.
The border adjustment exports our carbon price, so that the way brings them in whether they come here or not there. And that's something that Switzerland keeps doing, but she's not recommending.
True. Yeah, we were talking earlier today about how the proposed carbon fee in the U.S. right now would have an exemption or easily for agriculture. Does this model have that exception, or is this without that exception?
I would guess, I don't know, but I would guess that it is without that exemption. But as Dana said this morning, it's a very tiny impact, so it's surrounding her.
One thing is other greenhouse gases, it's the real lever for it.
Yeah.
A lot of the stuff that we do has a small impact in the real world and a huge impact on the political space.
Right.
That's why you said that there's no you need silver buckshot. I use that all the time, and then I turn and say, and a carbon beam is a silver bullet for political. Because if we can get a carbon beam, then we will be working on the same side once we get back to it. And then I can go out and
Related to what Bruce said, the thing that's most powerful about minerals for me is it tells me what to fight for. Like I think we need more nuclear power, but it's not. So I don't want to get into fight about it. But carbon tax makes a huge difference, and then we'll need to get into the fight about it.
For sure, and I guess that's also interesting for the people who are talking about the CCUS project usually. So when they do it, that doesn't make huge changes on the whole model. Although they're interested to say that they have a huge impact on the whole flow, but it doesn't. So I don't think
Is there information about the assumptions behind each of these things?
Yes.
That we can pull back.
yes, so it's on En-ROAD manual. So if you just Google En-ROAD's manual, you would see like that all the assumptions, every equations that they use, you can see that. Yes.
So, in my line of work, every probability estimate has confidence limits around it. It's like when you look at the hurricane trackers, they spread out as you go out in time. And so, does En-ROADS have a confidence limit function so that things may look like they're different if you just use absolute numbers, but if you put confidence limits on it, you might find out they're really probably about the same.
I'm not aware of that. But I know that they usually on their workshop and everything, they discuss that like that. They put the limitation, but I'm not quite sure if they have an absolute number on that or not. I don't know if you know about it.
The reason that blue line is.
Right.
Yeah. Is that the answer?
But you look at Dina's graphs, and he's got a big cone.
Yeah, yeah.
There should be a big cone on that graph there.
Yeah.
I heard En-ROADS respond to that question at one point. They said that they're not putting it in there because it would just get rid of something. So that was kind of their, I mean, yeah, but you have to be a nerd to understand.
I mean, somebody in this room.
Yeah, somebody in this room would understand it. Maybe not nerds, right?
Donald Trump got up in there with giving something. I wondered if he might just way of only
becoming an ambassador, because maybe we might have some people in this room that are curious enough to learn more. There's a process of certification, right?
Yes. So as I guess that Beth mentioned about it, there is like a training session that will just sign up and add your name. So they would send you all the details. Majority of all of actually the meeting is on Zoom. And the good thing is that it's also self-paced training. So they provide you like all the modules and everything, like the courses, like the materials that you need to go through. Each week, you have like a Zoom meeting. You can go through the recording of that Zoom meeting as well. If you have any question, you can send them because they also put you in a Discord channel that you can communicate with the other ambassadors and ask them the question as well. So I guess the easiest way is that you just go to the En-ROAD and just sign up for the En-ROAD's training session. When you're done with that, they send you all the details of how you can become an ambassador. Yes, that's fine.
Tell people about the actions we have done. The side actions, I mean, that's the En-ROAD.
Sorry, I didn't get a question.
The action team on CCL community that focuses on emerald super, right?
Yes.
So people just-
Let people know.
Look for the action.
There is.
Yes, so, I guess that same as the other action team that we have on the CCL, there is this opportunity that you can also become like a, part of that team as well. So what you would do is that you just sign up to the forum, and same as like the arrow, they're gonna send you updates, and you're gonna have like monthly meeting, and you can just find out like some of the updates that probably you missed it or you didn't know about that, and they also provide you some opportunity to have a better understanding of if you want to like organize an event like this, or probably if you want to do like more training or you need more resources, they can also support you in that.
Let's give a big thank you to Mudir.